The Mercedes screeched to a stop. Adrian Cole, one of the city's wealthiest men, stared at an old beggar woman on a broken street corner and heard his dead mother's words come out of her mouth. She had been erased, silenced, buried alive by the very man who raised him. Now Adrian must choose protect his empire or destroy the lie his entire life was built on. The truth is about to shake an entire city. Hey family, welcome to my story channel. Please subscribe and give this video a like, it truly means the world to us. Don't forget to share it with your friends and loved ones, and turn on post notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thank you so much for the support. Now, sit back, relax, and let's dive into today's story. The black Mercedes screeched to a halt. Adrian Cole sat frozen behind the wheel, engine still running, staring at the old woman slumped against a crumbling wall by the roadside. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles went pale. Move, just drive away. But his feet would not touch the pedal. Around him, the old district of Millhaven smelled like rust and rain. Broken streetlights buzzed overhead. The celebration he had just left, the grand gala where 500 people toasted his name and called him the city's brightest future, felt like it belonged to another world. Here, in this forgotten corner of the city, an old woman sat in torn clothes, her gray hair falling across her face, a cracked plastic cup in her lap. Adrian opened the car door. He told himself he was just going to leave some money. He did it sometimes, a habit he couldn't explain. He walked toward her slowly, pulling a folded bill from his jacket. The woman did not look up. He crouched and placed the money into her cup. Then she spoke. "Little lion," she whispered. "Don't cry. The sun always comes back." Adrian stopped breathing. Those words, those exact words. He had not heard them since he was 6 years old, sitting on a hospital floor, sobbing while a woman with warm hands wiped his tears and whispered that very sentence into his ear. His mother's words. His dead mother's words. He grabbed the old woman's shoulder. "What did you just say?" She flinched and pulled away. "Please, I don't want trouble." "Say it again," Adrian said, his voice cracking. "Where did you hear that? Who told you to say that?" The woman lifted her face for the first time. Adrian stumbled backward. The wrinkles were deep. The eyes were sunken. The years had carved her down to almost nothing. But behind all of it, behind the suffering and the dirt and the hunger, were two eyes he had seen in every photograph on his mantelpiece for the last 27 years. His legs went weak. "Mama!" Meet Adrian Cole, 34 years old, founder of Cole Industries, worth more than most men dream of. Raised by his powerful father, Senator Raymond Cole, Adrian grew up believing success was his birthright and grief was something you buried deep and moved past. He never moved past losing his mother. Meet Eleanor Cole, the woman the world buried alive. Brilliant, warm, and dangerous only because she knew too much. She disappeared when Adrian was 6. Everyone said she died. Nobody said who killed her story. And then there is Senator Raymond Cole, respected, feared, and immaculate in his white suits. A man who built an empire on a foundation no one was ever supposed to find. This is where the story begins. 3 days before the encounter, the Cole Industries Tower rose 40 stories above Millhaven's skyline, glass and steel gleaming in the morning sun like a monument to ambition. On the top floor, Adrian Cole stood at his floor-to-ceiling window, phone pressed to his ear, watching the city below like a king surveys his kingdom. "The Hargrove deal closes Friday," said his assistant, Diana, through the line. "Your father's office called again. He wants you at the gala tomorrow night. Tell him I'll be there. He also said, and I'm quoting directly, 'Don't be late this time. The senator does not wait.'" Adrian exhaled slowly. "Tell him I said noted." He hung up and turned to the framed photograph on his desk. A woman holding a small boy on her lap, both of them laughing at something outside the frame. His mother, Eleanor, taken 6 months before she died. He picked it up the way he always did, carefully, like it might break. His office door swung open. Raymond Cole walked in without knocking because Raymond Cole never knocked. He was 63 years old with silver hair, sharp eyes, and the kind of posture that made rooms shrink around him. He wore a white suit. He always wore white. "You look tired," Raymond said, settling into the chair across from Adrian's desk. "Good morning to you too, Dad. The gala tomorrow. It matters. Governor Hale will be there. Half the city council. I need you present, sharp, and sociable." "I said I'd come." Raymond glanced at the photograph in Adrian's hand. Something shifted in his face. So fast, so small, that Adrian almost missed it. Almost. "Put that away," Raymond said quietly. "It does you no good, holding on to things that are gone." Adrian set the photo down carefully. "She was my mother, and she's been gone for 28 years. Raymond stood up, adjusting his cufflinks. "The living deserve more of your attention than the dead." He left the same way he came, like a verdict. Adrian sat alone in the silence. He had never questioned his father growing up. Raymond Cole had given him everything: education, wealth, opportunity, protection. After Eleanor died, Raymond became both parents at once. Strict, demanding, but always present. Adrian owed him everything. That was what he believed. That was what Raymond had spent 28 years making him believe. That evening, Adrian drove himself to the gala, no driver, no assistant. He liked those rare moments of quiet. He liked the city at night when the noise died down and the streets told older, quieter stories. He took a wrong turn somewhere near the South End. And that wrong turn changed everything. Eleanor Cole had not spoken her son's childhood nickname out loud in 22 years. She did not know why she said it that night. Something about the way the young man crouched, the angle of his shoulders, the shape of his jaw pulled it out of her like a reflex. Like muscle memory from a life she had been forced to forget. Now he was on his knees in front of her, tears running freely down the face of a man who clearly never cried. "Mama," he kept saying. "Mama, is it you?" "Stop," she whispered sharply, grabbing his arm and pulling him close. "Lower your voice, please. I don't understand. You're dead. They told me, everyone told me." "Adrian." Her voice was firm despite her trembling hands. "Listen to me carefully. You cannot be seen with me. Not here. Not yet. I'm not going anywhere. You have to. Tonight." She pushed his hands away gently. "If they know you found me, both of us are in danger." Who is they?" She looked at him for a long moment. The boy she had rocked to sleep. The boy she had lost. Now a man powerful, successful, and still carrying the same question mark in his eyes that he had as a child. "Come back tomorrow," she said quietly. "Come alone. Tell no one. I'm not leaving you on a street corner." "Adrian." She said his name the way she used to when he was small and about to make a mistake. "I have survived 28 years without you. I can survive one more night. Go." He went. Barely. Eleanor watched the black Mercedes disappear around the corner. Then she pressed her back against the cold wall and let out a breath that had been trapped in her chest for what felt like her entire lifetime. She had prayed for this moment. She had also dreaded it. Because finding Adrian meant the story was no longer buried. And the people who buried it were still powerful. Still dangerous. Still watching. She reached into the lining of her torn jacket and pulled out a small folded envelope. Old and yellowed, sealed with tape that had been replaced so many times the edges were thick with layers. She held it against her chest. "Not yet," she told herself. "Not until he's ready." 28 years ago, Eleanor Cole had been a lawyer. Sharp, ambitious, devoted to truth. She had married Raymond Cole believing he was the man he showed her. For years she believed it, until the night she found the files. Until the night she learned what her husband and his allies had built their kingdom on. Until the night she tried to make a phone call and found herself waking up 3 days later in a hospital room in another city, with a death certificate already printed in her name. She had lost everything that night, except the envelope, and her will to survive long enough to hand it to the right person. Adrian did not sleep. He sat in his study surrounded by every photograph, every document, every childhood memory he had ever stored. He pulled boxes from the back of his wardrobe. He unfolded old letters. He stared at his mother's face in picture after picture, then closed his eyes and held the image of the woman from the street beside it. Same eyes. Same slight tilt of the head when she was afraid. Same hand's long fingers, the left thumb slightly crooked from an old injury she once laughed about while explaining it to 6-year-old Adrian. "Is it really possible?" he said aloud to the empty room. He pulled out his laptop and typed his mother's name into every database he could access. Eleanor Cole. Deceased. Died February 14th, 1997. Cause: cardiac arrest. Buried at Millhaven North Cemetery. He had been to that grave. He had stood at it and cried. He grabbed his car keys. Millhaven North Cemetery was quiet and dark at 2 a.m. Adrian walked straight to the grave he had visited a dozen times over the years. The headstone was real. The name was real. The dates were carved in stone. He stood there for several minutes. Then he took out his phone and called the one person he trusted completely. "Marcus. Adrian. It's 2 in the morning. I need you to pull a death certificate for me. Eleanor Cole, February 1997. I need the original, not the digital file. The physical original from the county records office." Pause. Marcus Webb was his oldest friend and also the sharpest attorney he knew. He did not ask unnecessary questions. "By when?" "Yesterday." Another pause. "Adrian, what's going on?" Adrian stared at the grave. "I think my mother might be alive." The silence on the other end was long enough to fill a room. "I'll call you in the morning," Marcus finally said. The next day, Adrian returned to the South End alone. Eleanor was waiting in a narrow alley 2 streets from where they had met. She had cleaned herself up slightly, but the years of hardship still wore on her like a second skin. Adrian brought food. She ate slowly, watching him the way a person watches someone they love and are terrified of losing again. "Tell me everything," he said. "Adrian." "Everything, Mama. From the beginning." She set down the food, folded her hands, looked at him with the eyes of someone who had rehearsed this conversation 10,000 times in her head and still did not know where to begin. "Your father is not who he told you he was," she said quietly. "I know." She looked at him sharply. "I don't know the details yet," he added, "but I know something is wrong. I've always known something was wrong. I just didn't want to see it." Eleanor nodded slowly. "Then you're ready." She reached into her jacket and pulled out the old yellowed envelope. "This is where it started," she said. "And this is how we end it." The envelope contained 3 things. A handwritten list of names: politicians, judges, businessmen, all connected to Raymond Cole. A photograph of a meeting that was never supposed to be documented. And a single page from an internal financial report showing transfers of money that could only be described as the fingerprints of large-scale corruption. Adrian stared at them for a long time. "Where did you get these?" "I was a lawyer," Eleanor said simply. "I was careful." "This photograph," Adrian said, pointing. "This man next to Dad, that's Chief Justice Okafor." "Yes. He died 4 years ago." "Conveniently," Eleanor said. Adrian looked up at her. "And this one, this man on the right." "Governor Hale," she said. 30 years younger. But yes, the name landed on Adrian like a weight. Governor Hale, the same man his father had insisted would be at tomorrow's city event. The same man Adrian had done business with, shaken hands with, smiled for photographs with. "How deep does this go?" "Deep enough," Eleanor said, "that when I tried to go to a journalist in 1997, he disappeared before the story could print. Deep enough that the judge I approached for help signed my death certificate instead of a protection order. Deep enough that I spent the first 5 years running from city to city, sleeping in shelters and churches, before I accepted that no one was going to help me." "Why did you come back to Millhaven?" Her voice dropped. "Because you were here." Adrian set the papers down. He pressed his palms flat on the table and stared at nothing for several seconds. "I attended her funeral," he said quietly. "Your funeral. I was 6 years old and Dad held my hand and told me to be strong. I cried until I couldn't breathe." "I know." "He watched me cry at your grave." "Adrian." He held my hand. His jaw tightened. "And he knew." Eleanor reached across and placed her hand over his. She did not try to soften it. There was no softening it. Raymond Cole had held his son's hand at a fake grave and felt nothing. That was the truth. "What do we do now?" Adrian asked. "We do what I should have done 28 years ago," Eleanor said. "We don't run. We don't hide. We walk straight into the light and we make sure the whole city sees." Back in his study that evening, Adrian called Marcus. "The death certificate," Marcus said carefully. "There are irregularities, Adrian. The physician who signed it, Dr. Amos Brandt, his license was revoked 8 months after Eleanor's supposed death. His records show he was paid a large sum from an account I can't trace yet. And the burial registry, the plot number in your mother's name, doesn't match the actual plot your family paid for." Silence. "She's alive, isn't she?" Marcus said. "Yes." "Adrian, do you understand what this means? If your father—" "I know exactly what it means. We need to be careful. These people have had 28 years to protect themselves. And my mother has had 28 years on the streets," Adrian said. "I think careful has had its chance. Word travels fast among powerful people." Adrian had barely begun pulling threads when Raymond called. Not texted, not emailed, called. That alone was unusual enough to make Adrian's stomach drop. "Lunch," Raymond said. "Today. The club." "I'm busy." "It wasn't a question, son." The Millhaven Club was the kind of place where deals were made over fine food and no one ever spoke directly about anything. Raymond was already seated when Adrian arrived, posture perfect, white suit pressed, 2 glasses of water already poured. "You've been visiting the South End," Raymond said before Adrian could sit. "I go wherever I want." "Of course." Raymond's expression did not change. "I'm only mentioning it because that area is not safe. For a man of your profile, being seen in places like that raises questions." "Who told you?" "I have people who care about your safety." Adrian looked at his father, really looked at him for perhaps the first time with clear eyes. "Dad," he said slowly, "did you love her? My mother. Did you ever actually love her?" Raymond blinked. "Once." "What kind of question is that?" "A simple one. Your mother died 28 years ago. I have spent every day since then making sure you had everything she would have wanted for you." "That's not an answer." Raymond leaned forward slightly. "Adrian, whatever it is you think you're looking for in that part of the city, stop. Some questions don't have answers that help anyone. They only cause damage. And if someone is already damaged, what then?" Raymond studied his son for a long moment. "Be careful," he said quietly. "I mean that in every possible way." It was the closest Raymond Cole ever came to a threat against his own child. That night, 2 men followed Adrian's car from the restaurant. He noticed them at the 3rd traffic light, same black SUV, same distance. He called Marcus while driving. "I'm being followed." "Adrian, he knows something. He doesn't know how much, but he knows I'm moving. Then we have to move faster." "My mother has voice recordings," Adrian said. "She recorded conversations in the months before they silenced her. Old cassette tapes she's kept hidden. We need to digitize them and get copies to someone trustworthy before Raymond shuts every door." "How trustworthy?" "Someone he can't buy." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "I know a journalist. Young. Not connected to any of the old networks. She's been trying to break something big for 2 years. Set up a meeting." "Adrian, once this goes to press, there's no taking it back." "Good," Adrian said. "It was never supposed to be taken back." They worked through 2 nights. Marcus retrieved original documents from 3 different county offices using legal access requests that Raymond's people could not block without exposing themselves. Eleanor sat with Adrian in a safe apartment Marcus had arranged, going through every cassette tape with shaking hands and clear eyes. The voice on the tapes was younger Eleanor at 31, recording her own fear like evidence. "Today Raymond told me to stop asking about the Meridian account. When I pushed, he said, 'Eleanor, I need you to be my wife right now, not my lawyer.' I've heard that before. This time I'm writing it down." Another tape. "I spoke to Judge Harmon today. He told me to drop everything. He was scared. I could see it. When I asked him who was threatening him, he walked out of his own office. And the final tape, the clearest, the most devastating. It's February 10th. I found the transfer records. 12 million moved from a city infrastructure account into a private shell company controlled by Raymond and 4 others. I have the documents. I have the names. If something happens to me after this recording, if I disappear, or if someone says I died, it was not natural. It was them. My name is Adrian Cole, and I am alive right now, and I am telling the truth. The room was completely silent when it ended. Adrian had not moved for the entire recording. His hands were clasped in front of his face like he was praying. The City Infrastructure Fund, he said finally. That was the account used to build the North Hospital and 3 public schools. The money was never used for that, Eleanor said. The buildings were built with a fraction of the budget. The rest disappeared. And the people who lived in those neighborhoods, the poorly built structures, the flooding in the hospital basement every winter. Yes, Eleanor said softly. The corruption had not just destroyed one family. It had quietly damaged thousands of lives over 28 years. Adrian stood up abruptly and walked to the window. This ends tomorrow, he said. Adrian, we still need to be careful about how. No. He turned around. Dad is hosting a city honors ceremony tomorrow evening. Governor Hale will be there. Half the names on your list will be in the same room at the same time. He paused. We are not going to a journalist first. We are going there. Eleanor stood slowly. You want to do it publicly. I want every single person in that room to hear it at the same moment. I want no one to be able to make a private phone call and get ahead of the story. Eleanor looked at her son for a long time. Then she straightened her back, the same quiet dignity she had carried through 28 years of being erased, and nodded once. Then I need to look like myself again, she said. Not like what they made me. The Millhaven City Honors Ceremony was held in the Grand Rotunda, the city's most prestigious event hall. Chandeliers blazing, every seat filled with the kind of people who decided how the city breathed. Raymond Cole sat in the front row beside Governor Hale. Senator, governor, judges, council members, business leaders. The very architecture of power in one beautifully dressed room. Adrian arrived late, which was unlike him. Several people noticed. Raymond noticed most of all. He watched his son walk in wearing a dark suit, expression unreadable, and take a seat near the back rather than the front where his name card had been placed. Raymond's eyes narrowed. The ceremony began. Awards were given. Speeches were made. Then Adrian stood up. He walked calmly to the front of the room as the current speaker trailed off in confusion. A murmur moved through the crowd. The event coordinator stepped forward, but Adrian held up a hand and something in his face stopped the room. My name is Adrian Cole, he said. Most of you know me. My father is sitting in the front row. And I need 1 minute of this city's time. Raymond rose slightly from his seat. Adrian, please sit down, Dad. The firmness in Adrian's voice made Raymond sit. 28 years ago, Adrian said, his voice steady and clear, my mother, Adrian Cole, supposedly died. I grew up visiting her grave. I built my life around her memory. I believed her death was the one true tragedy of my story. He paused. It was a lie. The murmur sharpened into silence. My mother is alive. She has been alive this entire time. While I went to the best schools and ran a company and stood in rooms like this, she was on the streets of this city. Erased. Silenced. Because she discovered what certain men in this city built their power on. He nodded toward the entrance. The doors opened. Adrian Cole walked in. She wore a simple gray dress. Her hair was pinned back. Her back was straight. Her face carried every year of what had been done to her, and she wore it without apology. The room did not make a sound. Raymond Cole turned gray. Governor Hale reached for his phone. Don't, Marcus said from behind him, placing a firm hand on the table. There are copies of everything in 7 locations and a journalist outside with the full story already written. The only thing any of you can do right now is stay seated. Adrian spoke for 20 minutes. He showed the documents on a screen. He played the recording. He named every name. He walked through the financial fraud, the silencing, the fake death certificate, the cover-up that had outlasted careers and destroyed a woman's entire life. When he finished, he walked to his mother and stood beside her. "This is Eleanor Cole," he said quietly. "My mother. She is not dead. She is not a ghost. She is the most courageous person in this room." Eleanor looked out at the sea of stunned faces, the complicit. She did not cry. She had cried enough. What came after was not clean or simple. The law is never clean or simple when power is involved. Raymond Cole's lawyers moved fast. Governor Hale issued a public denial before the night was over. But Marcus had prepared for all of it. The evidence was everywhere. The recordings were clear. And the journalist outside, a young woman named Saad Obi, ran the story before midnight. By morning, Millhaven had not slept. By the end of the week, 3 arrests had been made. 3 more followed within the month. Raymond Cole's assets were frozen pending investigation. The governor stepped back from public duties under mounting pressure. The grave with Eleanor's name was quietly removed. Her record was restored. Her name, her law license, her very existence returned to her piece by piece. Adrian moved his mother into a home by the edge of the city where she could see trees from the window. She had asked for somewhere quiet. He had made sure of it. One evening they sat together on the back porch, tea going cold between them. "I used to imagine this," Eleanor said softly. "Sitting with you somewhere peaceful. You being grown. I used to imagine it to stay sane." "I'm sorry it took so long," Adrian said. "You found me. You found me first. You said those words." She smiled, the kind of smile that had survived underground for 28 years and still managed to look like light. "Little lion, don't cry. The sun always comes back." Adrian exhaled slowly. "You were right." She reached over and covered his hand with hers. The city was still shaking. The courts were still working. The powerful were still fighting. It would take years to fully unravel what Raymond Cole and his circle had built. But here, on this porch, in this quiet, a son had his mother back. And the woman the city had buried alive was sitting in the sun. The city will never forget the day a rich man found his dead mother begging on a street corner. And Eleanor Cole will never forget the night her son chose her over everything. If the story moved you, smash that like button, drop a comment telling me which moment hit hardest, and subscribe.